coming from my perspective, where I've watched it a 10-minute a 10-minute run through, and then a 2.5-hour run through. I did find it confusing, but I completely understood it. Like, I got everything. It's just not as, cut clear as, something like Shrek, where you can follow the.
You always, that's like the benchmark for movies. Just come back to Shrek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And I'm Jaden.
And today is a very special podcast because we have, again, hopefully he's here, our returning special guest, and that is Alex.
Hello.
Hi, he's here. That's good. It's good to hear you. So this is a podcast where we rewatch classical current films every week and then decide whether they deserve a rewatch from you. And this week we watched Inception. And if you remember when we had Alex on for Revenge of the Sith, he said he wanted to come back to do this movie. And
Yes.
So why is that, Alex? Why are you so drawn to this movie?
Well, this would be my favorite movie of all time. Well, top three.
Top three.
Mm.
Yeah, so I had to get on the podcast with the fellas.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely can see why it would be in your top three. This is a fantastic movie. So let's get into it. A bit of a story overview. We've had a bit of a hit and miss with IMDb in their story synopsis over the podcasts, but I found one from another website today. So IMDb's got the kick. They've been fired. So Google says Leonardo DiCaprio is a professional mind thief who steals information by infiltrating the subconscious of his targets. He is offered a chance to have his criminal history erased as payment for the implantation of another person's idea into a target's subconscious. Pretty complex movie, isn't this, boys?
Yeah.
It's definitely complex.
So this film was quite well regarded by critics, actually. Four Oscar wins, which is pretty impressive, and then also 4 other nominations. And I just want to go through some of these Oscars because I feel like, sometimes the Oscars, they get it right, and sometimes they just get it extremely wrong. And
especially recently with the Oscar changes.
Yes.
Sam has a lot to talk about there.
So Inception, it came out in 2010, right? And 2010 was an absolutely fantastic time for movies. Here are the nominations for Best Motion Picture. You ready? So Black Swan, that's the one that Natalie Portman won the Oscar for.
I've heard that's pretty good.
Yeah, The Fighter. So that's a movie with Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg, like the ones from The Last Jedi, perhaps. So The Fighter, that's like a boxing movie that was apparently very good. It's where Christian Bale did one of his body transformations.
Oh, yeah.
One of many.
Obviously, we have Inception. The Kids Were Alright, no idea what that is. The King's Speech, that's a good movie. 127 Hours, so that's James Franco gets his arm stuck in a rock.
That's a really good film.
Yeah. Also, The Social Network, fantastic film, I will say. Don't know if you boys have seen that,
No.
but brilliant. Toy Story 3 as well. And we also had True Grit and Winter's Bone. So I have no idea what those last 2 are as well. But point is, 2011 the 2011 awards were jam-packed with absolute
2010,
brilliant movies.
Wouldn't it have been?
Yeah, but so the 2011 awards, because they obviously do the awards a year later.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so The King's Speech took out Best Motion Picture for this year. And being a fan of The Social Network, I wanted to watch The King's Speech to see if it was actually any good. And it was good, but it wasn't great. And I think Inception's actually better than King's Speech, to be honest. So you can say that there was a bit of a robbery there. and for some feat of nature, Christopher Nolan did not win the Best Directing category. In fact, he was not even nominated. So there you go. The Oscars are rubbish.
A freak of nature is Leonardo DiCaprio not getting an Oscar in any of these amazing films until The Revenant came out, which was
Trash.
one of the worst films,
Hated
and
that
then he got the Oscar for that.
Yeah, that was not good.
I think that was just a pity. Like, here, you've done all these good movies, we've forgotten about you.
They eventually had to give it to him.
Yeah, it was like a makeup present. It was like, the Oscars for like the ex-girlfriend that were like have neglected Leonardo DiCaprio for so long, and they're like, oh no, I still love you.
I'm going to correct you to say it's Leonardo da Vinci, but then I realized that's the
Da Vinci.
No,
wrong
Alex,
Leonardo.
you might have a chance to correct me soon, because once you see the name of the one of the characters in this movie, you might have a bit of PTSD from that Tenet episode. But let's go through the characters real quick. So obviously Leonardo DiCaprio is Cobb, and I will say, what a weird name.
Yeah.
Could have gone for something a bit more cool, but whatever. Mr. Cobb is, and so Ken Watanabe is, get this, Alex, Saito.
No.
No. This is Sator all over again. You didn't even say his actual name right.
No, but I think it is Saito.
No, it's Saito.
You're joking.
No. It's also Ken Watanabe, not Watanabe, bro.
Whatever. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Arthur, and I will say the next 5 names that I'm about to read are all in the Dark Knight trilogy. Marion Cotillard is Maul, obviously not to be confused with the Star Wars villain of the same name. Tom Hardy is Eames, again another weird name. Cillian Murphy is Robert Fischer, and we also have Michael Caine as well, capping off the Batman crew, and Ellen Page as well, who's the girl that Leonardo talks to explain the movie.
I counted 7 actors in this film that have appeared in Christopher Nolan movies, which is quite funny because Christopher Nolan likes to reuse his cast members in various other films that he's created.
Especially Michael Caine.
Oh, Michael Caine is like his lucky charm.
Yeah. No, I think he has a group chat, and he sends a message out to 10 actors. He's like, yo, guys, I've got a movie coming. New one. Who wants to be in it? Who's available? He just tries to, because you see, especially Joseph Gordon-Levitt must be in at least 3 Christopher Nolan movies. But then obviously Michael Caine's in almost all of them. So yeah, interesting. And you see the same thing with Martin Scorsese as well. Almost every Martin Scorsese.
What? God, what? Bro, you're so Australian. You can't pronounce any European or anything that's not Australian names.
Tell me how to pronounce Martin Scorsese.
Yes, not Scorsese. Oh.
Gosh.
God.
Alex
my mum would have the wooden spoon out by now, smacking it. Wrong, boy.
Pronunciation police. God. Moving onwards.
Onward.
So general thoughts, boys. Pros and cons for this movie. There is a bit of a spoiler at the end, so be careful not to spoil the ending.
I think we just move into spoiler region now because...
You think?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, would you say to somebody who hasn't seen this movie, would you recommend watching it? And also,
yes.
You got to think of but the average audience member probably thinks this movie is too complicated. What are your thoughts on that,
Jaden?
Okay. Yeah, I can see how this movie would be confusing, and a lot of the time when I'm watching Christopher Nolan films, I am confused. The very few I've watched. But by no means does that make a film terrible. I feel like in a way it kind of makes a film interesting. And Christopher Nolan, each film he's done is so different from mainstream media and mainstream film. It's something different to watch, and it's really unique and enjoying to watch. So I'd definitely give it a recommendation if you haven't watched it or want to rewatch it.
And I think that's another point with Christopher Nolan movies is you go into the film and you're constantly thinking about what's happening, and you think about it after for a good 2,
Mm,
3 hours, you're like, oh, that's what was happening. Oh, that's what was
yeah.
happening. And that's the beauty of his films. Like,
Mm,
you want to talk about it. You want to go watch it again. You want to understand, look up what the meaning was for yourself. And
yeah.
that's why I think people should watch it.
I'm pretty
Mm.
certain that there was still rumors and like theories floating around from this film.
There's still, theories
This
going
year,
on.
there's still theories going around about the ending, which is just insane to see the impact that Nolan's creation has on, theorists and the audience that's watching it.
Yeah.
For sure. No, I agree. Part of the beauty of Christopher Nolan films is that they're extremely confusing, at least on the first watch. I feel like most Christopher Nolan films are designed to be watched twice at least.
Mhm.
I know with Tenet, the first time I saw that, I was like, I was in awe. Like, I loved the experience, but I missed probably like 30% of the main plot.
I missed
And
almost 80 of it. I had no clue what the hell was going on.
yeah, and it was especially really hard with the sound mixing as well in the cinema. But the second time that I watched that, I had just such a better experience. And perhaps like we could go around the room. How many times have you guys watched this film before watching it this time?
Um,
You go.
at least 5 times. I can't count, but at least
Holy
5.
moly. Okay, interesting. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and Jaden?
Yeah, look. I watched this film probably back in like 2018.
No, you don't.
No. I watched the first 10 minutes of it, and then I decided that it was too confusing and I didn't like the intro, and then
Yeah.
I haven't watched it since. And then 2 days ago, whatever, I watched it the whole way through in a 2.5 hour sitting or however long it is.
And I think before Millsy comes in and tries to like castrate you for doing that, I feel like that's a totally reasonable thing to watch the first 10 minutes of this, and not like only for this movie. For this movie,
Yeah, I do it a lot.
The first 10 minutes, obviously you have a reputation of doing this, Jaden, but the first 10 minutes of this movie are extremely confusing. And especially, we'll get into it a bit soon, but especially that very first scene with the ocean, and this character is really old, and we're like, what on earth is going on? And we really don't know what is going on until the very end of the film.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I when I watched this movie for the first time, because I watched this film twice in total, once before this, and the first time I watched it, I was like, what on earth is going on for most of the film, to be honest. But then on this rewatch, or on the first rewatch, I was really able to understand a bit more of the plot. So I think it's good that we all coming from sort of different perspectives here. I've watched it twice, Jaden's watched it once, and obviously Alex has watched it quite a few times. So it'll be interesting.
I just had to bite my tongue a few times there when you said it was a bit confusing, but it's all right. We'll punch on later.
So, no. So obviously Nolan films, and
Yeah.
particularly this film in particular, has a very like confusing plot, or not say confusing, but just like very technical premise.
Yeah, I must have a very biased look on the film, but I'll be as subjective as possible.
Well, I think it's the fact that you've watched it 5 times. You understand the plot and you know all of the storylines. But coming from my perspective, where I've watched it a 10-minute a 10-minute run through, and then a 2.5 hour run through, I did find it confusing, but I completely understood it. Like, I got everything.
Yeah.
It's just not as cut clear as something like Shrek, where you can follow the.
You always, that's like the benchmark for movies. Just come back to Shrek.
Look, okay, it's not as clear as something like Toy Story. Okay,
You're speaking about kids' movies.
okay, let's find an adult film. It's not as clear as The Fast and the Furious.
Oh yeah, or like James Bond.
What is the Fast and the Furious franchise? They're like superheroes in cars, bro. Like,
yeah, that is true.
I think this is a very obviously the premise is here to do with dreams. It's essentially a dream heist movie. Like, it's essentially a heist movie. So if you think of like other heist movies where this premise isn't at play, like where they don't have to go inside each other's dreams, It's quite a simple layout there. But to this, like, they go into dreams inside a dream inside a dream, I think. And I think certain people are just like, because I feel like the average audience just want to sit down in like an MCU movie and, watch, some big explosions and some half decent music and, a bad guy who pops up around like, 30 minutes into the film and then defeats him at the end.
Saito.
Well, to that I say you'll have to dream a little bigger, darling.
Ooh.
Yeah, very good, very good. He's obviously been practicing his quotable lines.
That's just one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. If you know what scene I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right?
No, that's Tom Hardy saying that.
Oh, it is too.
Oh, yes.
Because he's got the gun, and then he goes, "You got to dream a little bigger, darling," and pulls out a grenade launcher.
Oh, that's a great moment, by the way.
That's one of my favorite moments in the movie.
Yeah. So I think to get into the spoilers now, I think this deserves a watch, but I feel like people aren't going to really enjoy this movie as much as I did on the second time when they first watch it, because I feel like, when you first watch a Nolan movie, you're trying to piece together the plot it just takes so much brain work, at least for me anyway, that I'm not really like relaxed and enjoying the actual experience. I'm sort of like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? All those sort of questions are popping up because we've just been told throughout the entire film how it works. But watch it once, and I think that might pique your interest enough to watch it a second time because it's a damn good movie anyway. So moving on to spoilers, do we want to start at the very start with, that weird sort of flashback that's not a flashback, that's like maybe in limbo? Is that what's going on there?
It's in limbo.
Yeah, so obviously at the very start of the film, like Leonardo DiCaprio wakes up on a beach and then he goes sees this really old version of Watanabe or whatever he's called. And I'm just going to keep saying it, Alex. You just have to deal with it, bro. You have to deal with it, mate. And we have no context to this whatsoever until the very end of the film. And Jaden, watching this film the first time, what were your thoughts when that was happening?
Look, I was slightly confused, but that's a given with Nolan films, and I've only watched a few, but it got me interested because I wanted to learn what was going to happen. So yeah, like you said, it definitely piqued my interest, and by no means did it like turn me off watching the film. It did the first time, but the second time I decided to stay through with it and watch it till the end. So yeah.
Yeah, and we sort of get a bit of an introduction to Leonardo DiCaprio's wife. Obviously, we don't know that she's dead at this stage. Obviously, through a bit of memories. And I will say, a bit of a hot take here, but I feel like this is probably one of Nolan's most emotionally resonant movies. I want to get your opinions on that, guys, because a lot of Nolan movies are just like, fast action and crazy things going on. And there's not a lot of, emotional depth to them. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, Maul's involvement in the story and whether you guys were actually like emotionally invested in Leonardo DiCaprio's character because of that. What are your thoughts, Alex? Because you watched this movie several times.
No, definitely this is one of his more emotional films, of course. The whole central plot is Cobb trying to get back to his kids and everything, trying to stay away from Mal. That's how you pronounce it, not Maul. It's not Darth Maul, it's Mal.
No, it's Maul.
Anyway. And then... Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the main themes of the movie, and that's part of the reason I enjoy it so much.
Fair enough. And Jaden, what were your thoughts on that sort of storyline?
Look, I think any role that Leonardo DiCaprio has, he kind of pours his heart into it. And one scene in particular, are we in spoiler region yet? Can I talk?
Yeah.
I think the scene where, Mal or Maul, I don't know which one it is, tells him to come out onto the windowsill with her.
Yeah.
And then she obviously falls off. Man, his acting in that moment was just
fantastic.
spectacular. And it made you feel like it was so real. Like a lot of films, A lot of the time when they've got like a really emotional aspect in it, they just fall short. But this felt kind of real in a way.
And that's so ironic that you say that about a movie about reality and dream states, and you said his acting made it so real. Isn't that how ironic is
Ooh,
that?
that is really
Ironic.
weird, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's part of the reasons I like this movie so much, because it makes you think about your own reality.
Oh, that's sick.
And we'll get a bit more into that with the totems and everything else
Mm.
down the track.
Yeah, definitely some theories to be had there.
So
But yeah, no, I agree. When his wife jumps off the balcony, I'm just going to refer to her as his wife now. But when when Cobb's wife jumps off the balcony, and then we see Cobb's reaction to that, it's really, really good acting, and I definitely felt something there. I was like, wow, that's actually so realistic. It feels real. You're right, Jaden. So. Yeah, definitely a really, really good performance from Leonardo DiCaprio here. But I mean, no surprise there, to be honest. But yeah, so the first job. So obviously Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he's along with. He's not along with Tom Hardy. He's along with Jason or Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character.
Yep.
They're sort of a duo, and they're running a job, and it doesn't go too well, does it? So they're sort of, I think they're trying to do extraction. Is that right, Millsy? Like they're trying to extract an idea from
so they're trying to get
Saito.
they're trying to get some information from Saito about his company, because they've been contracted by someone you don't really know. But then the architect, which is the person that builds the dreams, that's the person that everyone goes into to try and extract the information, actually messes up one of the layers. But I think the first time they mess up was part of the plan, because because Saito already knew about dream inception and everything.
Yeah.
That's why Cobb gets attacked, because you find out later in the film that people can be trained to like fend off people like Cobb. So they did that second layer of the dream to get to feel like Saito just woke up and now he's actually in reality. But then in that first layer of the dream, the architect messed up the rug, which is why you see Saito there like rubbing it like, hang on, this isn't mine. I'm still in a dream.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second layer was meant to be, but the first one wasn't.
And then the sort of mission once Saito realizes that the mission that they're trying to steal an idea from him, he realizes he's still dreaming, and it's sort of just like all downhill from there.
Yeah.
And it sort of works as well for the actual plot of the film, because they have to get rid of this architect, and obviously the architect sells them out, and that gets rid of their architect, so that now they need a new person, which then later on in the film makes them recruit an entirely new person who has no idea what's going on. And one of the drawbacks, one of the negatives from quite a few people when they watch this film, is that Ellen Page, her character, I think her name's like Ariadne or something. So one of the negatives is that her character is just a walking exposition machine. So she's walking along saying, how does this work, Leonardo DiCaprio? Because, the audience at that stage is asking, how does this all work? And Leonardo DiCaprio is like, hey, well, you're in a dream and you think it's real. And how did you get here? And, everything like that. So that's definitely one of the drawbacks. But I mean, how else are you going to communicate the complexity of this film? It's quite hard to think of any other ways to, naturally tell everybody.
They definitely did that in a very cool way with the street like folding in on itself and all the trains coming through, and
some of the shots in this film are just amazing to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say the action is really, really good as well. Sort of at the start, we get like Leonardo DiCaprio running down, some hallways and, shooting people with, like a silenced pistol or something like that. I think it's right after the mission sort of goes wrong and he's sort of like got to escape. And there's like a chase scene. That was awesome. but did you guys think the same of like the action in this movie and how it was shot and everything like that?
Well, I thought one of the cool things is, so this is going back to the beginning of the film. You might not notice it, but when Cobb's in the second layer of Saito's dream, and he's like got the silenced pistol and he's trying to kill everyone, to stay silent and he's like assassinating everyone. When he shoots the pistol, he catches the shell above. You might not notice it, but he catches
Oh,
the
really?
shells so they don't make a noise when they go on the floor.
Oh, wow,
And it's
that's
just
cool.
attentions to detail like that really just sell the whole thing. Like if you watch the movie again now and you saw it, you'd be like, wow, that's sick. But it's just such a small thing that they don't like focus on, but they still
That'd
do.
be very hot, wouldn't it? Like the
Well,
shell
he's got
from
gloves on. He's not just
Oh,
barehanding
okay.
it.
He's got gloves. Yeah, good on him. Yeah, and he catches people when he shoots them as well.
Yeah.
Especially people. But yeah, it was a very cool scene. It was like watching Colin Firth in Kingsman. Just like such an awesome actor, just going through and just like murdering people is just I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just something about it is just good to watch. But yeah. So Jaden, what are your thoughts on Leonardo DiCaprio's character in those first few scenes where he's like going through and mowing down people and everything like that? It's like, did you think it was well shot? Was a good performance, etc.
Yeah, I think, like you just mentioned, I think the cinematography was just amazing, and Nolan delivers on this in each film. Um, so yeah, I do think the action was just top notch, and it kind of reminded me of something from a James Bond film. Um, I'm just trying to think of one in particular, probably Quantum of Solace. No, it's not Quantum of Solace. It might be Casino Royale, where he's chasing that dude down in the construction site, and they're like,
Yeah, it's Casino
"That's
Royale.
Casino
Yeah.
Royale." Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that, where it's set in like this hot country, and he's trying to chase this dude down, and then they eventually reach the embassy. But no, I do think that Nolan did some terrific action in this film, and another scene that really um, pointed out to me as just amazing was the scene where they're in the taxi, and then they've got like the other car following behind them, um, and then they get ambushed, and like the taxi's just getting like absolutely like
Battered.
with rounds. I feel like that was shot really well, and we also got to keep in mind that it's raining at this time, so they have to shoot all of this, and I'm pretty sure it's artificial rain, but they have to shoot all of this in these wet conditions, and man, that would just be so hard to do. But Nolan just somehow has that directorial mindset to pull this off in some way, and he just does it each time, and it's just incredible.
For sure. Yeah, definitely in a lot of Nolan films, I think all stunts that could be reasonably done, like in real life, are done in real life. They're all practical. And we see that obviously through all of his movies, really. I mean, in Tenet, he crashed a bloody plane into a building, for God's sake. So he definitely makes sure to try and make those effects as practical as possible.
Well, I'm pretty sure he did the train scene practically as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it was actually a train, but it was more like a truck with a train outside of it, kind of shell out of the thing. So it's not a full, needing tracks and everything. But they did it like the plane one.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. But yeah, and obviously when a bit later on in the movie, when gravity's going everywhere, I think a lot of those stunts are actually done practically as well, which is just like amazing. And obviously, like you've got to think of how the stunt doubles are doing that. Walking through hallways that are being rotated, just incredibly dangerous. You definitely have to make sure you knew which way is up constantly, because take a step the wrong way and you could like free fall down and hit the ceiling. Like it's just it's crazy. But yeah, so to go back to sort of the main plot, obviously the mission's gone wrong, and Leonardo DiCaprio sort of offered this ultimatum, do Inception, and I'll let you see your kids, and I'll let you go back and be with your kids. And obviously I think he's been framed for murder at this stage by his own wife, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we also don't know. He says, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he says, "I've done Inception before. It's possible," and we don't know when he did that or what it was about or anything like that until later on in the film as well. So definitely a lot of unknowns at this stage. Like we literally don't know anything.
Well,
But you
that's a
have,
major thing that Nolan likes to do. Is he sets up? It's like Chekhov's gun. He sets up something in the start, and it pays off in the end. Like in Tenet with the orange string on the guy's
Yeah.
backpack, or here with he's done Inception before. When later on you find out why.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I want to say, what did you guys think of the recruitment process for Ellen Page's character? So draw a good maze with circles, and seems like Leo will hire you on a top secret spy mission in which you'll be paid millions of dollars. So I think pretty goofy maybe. What are your thoughts? Just like draw a good maze and you can go inside each other's dreams.
Well, I think this is one of the things that plays into my major theory of the film, which is, do you want me to get into that now,
Yeah,
or like
yeah,
kind
do
of
it.
build into it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
So this would have to make me talk about the ending, but I think the film is still Cobb's dream,
Okay.
and
Like the entire film.
the entire film is still Cobb's dream, and there's multiple reasons for that, but yeah, you see in every film and in every scene that there's something always relating to Cobb, even when he's not physically in the dream. Like
Mhm.
say, Ariadne and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, can't remember what his name was, Arthur. That's right.
Yeah.
Like when they're doing that scene where you know how the spiraling staircase and it's like the weird arrangement thing.
Yeah.
They still talk about Cobb. They somehow find a way to get to Cobb. And I think that's all because they're all projections of his subconscious kind of thing. But that
Oh.
we'll build more into that when we go on. But yeah, I think that's why it's so easy for Ariadne to come into the team, is because he wants her to be there in subconsciously.
That's
That's
crazy.
interesting. Yeah.
And
and
Ariadne's name in Greek mythology is related with labyrinths and mazes as well. Fun fact.
Oh.
oh yeah. Oh, she was destined.
Destined.
No, that's really interesting. Also, on that thought, when Cobb's like, she'll be back, and then she comes back. It's like he can predict.
Yeah.
When she finds out about the dreams, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm not doing this. This is crazy." Cobb's like, "Oh, she'll be back." And
Yeah,
then she
yeah.
comes back almost immediately. It's yeah, no, that's a really interesting theory, and I love Nolan movies when there's sort of that ambiguity and that interpretation to it.
Yeah, there
I
can be
think,
multiple interpretations of the same thing.
yeah, I think in our second episode, Jaden, when we were talking about Joker,
Mhm.
and obviously in that film, some of the some plot points, sort of open to interpretation. I referenced the ending of this movie,
Mhm.
if you can remember, and I said like it was the most ambiguous sort of ending, like in movie history.
Mm.
And you were like, "Oh, I've got to see it," and there we have it. You've seen it now. So, I'm very interested to talk about that ending. But we'll keep mowing through it now. So, um, so obviously creating the dream scene. When Leonardo DiCaprio is teaching Ellen Page how to, create
Yeah.
dreams. That's just iconic, isn't it? So what are your thoughts, guys, on the visuals and the music and everything like that?
You go, Jen.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to touch on the music, and I feel like Alex, you also have a lot of love for the scoring in this film.
Oh,
I
you
just
don't know.
I just want to like run straight to the end and talk about Hans Zimmer Time. And obviously, you introduced me to this amazing piece of music, Millsy, Alex, sorry, and God, it's just so heart wrenching and emotional. And at the end, when it kicks in, like I got goosebumps actually, because
Yeah.
the theme is just so incredible. And I'm doing a video on how the music and Baby Driver can complement a movie, and I feel like at the same time Inception just does it so well, as well. The music in a way just makes this movie, and it just ties it all
Yeah.
together. and along with the visuals, like you asked, Sam, I think the visuals in this film are just incredible as well. And I also picked up on the scene um, where we have a hallway scene, and Nolan somehow with his big brain invented this machine where he could turn the whole hallway,
Yeah.
and the actors
Mm.
like spun around in it. God, that's just
Oh, with the zero gravity.
yeah. You don't even like think about that, right? Like, who thinks about creating something like that? Nolan.
Yeah.
Um, I still don't know how he made the zero gravity. I do know how he made it turn, but I don't know how he made it zero gravity, and they're all like floating through. They're like in the international space station somehow. Like,
Mm.
I just don't know
Yeah.
how he did that in 2010. Like, it's just mind blowing stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe I know sometimes they use like actual zero gravity machines. I wouldn't put it past Nolan to use one of those, but imagine that would have been extremely expensive.
Mm.
But yeah, I know you guys hate it, but that rotation sort of stunt is actually used in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Don't even.
So when Peter's trying to take his suit off and he goes onto the roof and the room sort of rotates. So it's definitely been used in other sort of movies. So you've got to appreciate that.
Like less good
Less
movies.
good movies, for sure. No, I can
We got to
accept
keep
that.
in mind that film did come after Inception, so
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
saying
Yeah,
it had
yeah.
like an effect on the movie industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, those sort of stunts that Nolan sort of pioneers, are used in other movies.
Yep, that's what
That's
I'm
all
gonna say.
that's all I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So yeah, I will say, yeah, obviously the music in this film is brilliant. Hans Zimmer, he's a wizard. I think you said, Jaden.
Yeah, I did.
And I agree. Yeah, it's just every time Hans Zimmer is involved with a Nolan movie in particular, he just creates absolute art, and you really see in this film, especially towards the end, how music can sort of uplift or maybe
Change the scene.
Compliment.
and exactly provide that emotional depth to a scene, to really give you that feeling that you get towards the end, which is really great. But yeah, I want to note that so obviously all the action scenes in this film are incredible. And when Leo's running away from the police, I really like when he goes into the cafe, and he tries to sit down at a seat, and the manager's just not having it.
Just not letting him
Like, the
sit
manager's
down.
just like, you cannot sit there, you cannot sit there, and he just keeps on being like, one cafe.
Yeah,
And
one
it's just-
cafe.
and the guy's like, what on earth are you saying? He's like, one cafe.
and that also ties into my theory, because his subconscious is constantly trying to get him to keep moving forward to his kids, that no one wants him to stay where he is.
Ooh.
That's why someone's always got him. He's always moving in every scene. He can never stay in one place. And that's why he's like getting out of the cafe for no reason. Like, he's just a regular customer, but for some reason he wants out.
That's crazy. Nah, this is an awesome theory. Yeah, one cafe. Oh, and I will say as well, the definition of a real gentleman is saying "excuse me" as you move around your own subconscious. That's what Arthur says. He's like moving around people who are just projections of his mind, and he's like, "Oh, excuse me." Just, got to remember your manners, even when you're dealing with projections of your own brain.
Manners do maketh the man.
Ooh.
Yes, we know that. Good callback. So the old men, let's talk about them for a second. So we go into when we're sort of, preparing for this final heist, and be prepared to jump in wherever, guys, and add things that I've, missed or jumped over or anything like that. But when they're sort of, preparing for the big heist, which is probably like 30, 40 minutes into the film, we get this scene where we see like all these really old men who are
in the basement of
who is saying that their dreams have now become their reality, and they're just like all lying down into this sort of entering this dream space because they don't want to live in the real world anymore, which is pretty like an interesting like philosophical concept. And so what did you guys think about? Do you think that's a problem, or do you think like these old men should like wake up to what's actually going on, and how does that?
Well, this is something I touched on because I've done an essay for this exact film. So this is one of the things I touched on is their reality is what they make. So them wanting to be in the dream state constantly, they're in there for years, months, days. It doesn't matter to them. But when they come back to everyone else's reality, they feel out of touch. They feel they don't want to be there. And that's why people are constantly trying to create their own reality of things. But it doesn't matter like what other people want you to happen. It's just what they want to have, and that's why they're always lying there, always in a dream, in quotation marks, state.
And that's quite an interesting point, and we've seen this in film quite a lot as well. And I'm just going to pick up on a few here. I think Avatar also kind of touched on the idea of escaping from reality and making your own sort of perfect world in a way. And that is Avatar by Cameron.
James Cameron.
James Cameron, not the Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I think is quite similar to Inception. I found kind of a relation there. And then again, also Ready Player One, which released in 2018, where everyone is obsessed with virtual reality and they want to escape from what's going on in the real world to this sort of artificial world. I think there's also a tie there in a way where people just begin to hate what the world has given to them, what naturally is their world, and then they want to make their own sort of best version of what they can be living in.
It's a very interesting like philosophical concept, and I was going to bring up Ready Player One. So
you are? Okay.
Yeah, because it is very similar. Yeah, with when does this dream world become one's reality? If we spend too much time in like escapism, then is our escapism our reality? Like it's pretty.
And that's exactly what happened to Mal in the end, or well, at the start, technically, is they were in limbo for 50, 60 years.
Oh yeah.
And that's the reason that she, this happens later in the film, but the reason she wanted to kill herself is because she thought she was still dreaming and she wanted to get back to her kids.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then obviously there's the Inception at play there as well.
Yeah, but that's talks for the later on in the movie.
Yeah, no, that I really like that. I also, touching on Leonardo DiCaprio's wife, she creates a bit of an extra tension and an added sort of complication to the film as well, because when all of these dreams happen, that she's going to pop up at some stage, and so it sort of adds like an element of just like tension and an extra complication, because we know that not everything's going to go to plan, and we know it's only just a matter of time before this projection of Cobb's subconscious is going to come in and try and ruin everything. So I think she's really integral to like the action scenes and the dream scenes, because we know that it's like having a villain lurking around. Like,
and I think that's interesting that you bring that up, because can you recount one time that any of the other characters' subconsciousness affects the scene?
Oh, none.
So what Cobb's subconscious is always in other people's dreams, in quotation marks. So that again backs up the theory of it's all still Cobb's dream, because no one else affects the dream but him.
That's interesting. And
I think, sorry, Jaden. I think that's the best point that you have to that theory, to be honest.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jaden?
That's interesting because, correct me if I pronounce her name wrong, but Ariadne, she at one point in the film brings up the fact that Cobb's subconscious of manifesting his wife into other people's realities, it's going to eventually be found out by them, and it's going to mess up their eventual plan. So we do learn that Cobb's subconscious of his wife can have significant impact. So that's I'm kind of down with your theory now, Alex, of how it's all kind of set in Cobb's
Yeah.
dream. That's actually really interesting. I never thought of that after finishing the film. I just kind of considered, is he still in a dream state? I never thought of the whole
Yeah.
film being in his dream, but no, that's quite an interesting theory.
And that's a good thing to jump into the totems of the film, because it's around the time where this is exposed onto us, if you want to say, expositioned.
Mm-hmm.
So the totems are something that every person needs to differentiate between reality and dream sequences.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, Arthur's is a weighted die that only he knows the weight of. Tom Hardy's character, forget his name, is poker chips.
Eames,
that's right. He's got poker chips. Ariadne builds herself a bishop that plays differently, but Cobb's is a spinning top.
Yeah, and it's his wife's, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
I
his
thought you were
wife's,
supposed to create it your own.
and that's what Arthur says to Ariadne, that no one else can know what the difference is. No one else can know why it's different. Yet Cobb's totem is someone else's, and his totem is different to everyone else's because it's real in the real world and fake in the dream world. But his spinning top keeps spinning in the dream world and topples over in the real one.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be the other way around? Oh no, actually no. So that doesn't make sense. Because the laws of physics tell it to topple over.
Yeah.
Okay, forget I said that. But yeah, how can someone else know of their totem when you're supposed to be yours?
That's really interesting. I never thought about that. I always just assumed that. I guess I didn't pick up on it. I just assumed that it was his totem. But now that I know that it is his wife's, that's quite a. That's just kind of changed the game in a way.
Yeah.
There's so many little things that Nolan does that just makes you question his films, and that's what I just love about them. It's kind of, in a way, it's creating your own sort of interpretation of what happened in the film, and there's been so many iterations of theories and such that the film can just be interpreted in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Quentin Tarantino films in a way. You're either going to love the film or you're going to hate the film because you don't understand it. And I do think it's kind of a risky game to play in filmmaking, but again, it's unique, and not a lot of people are doing what Christopher Nolan's doing, and I think that's why so many of his films just get incredible reviews from these critics, because it's different. It's just not rehashed generic superhero films.
Yeah.
He's doing different stuff, which just makes you question what happened in the film.
I find it interesting that you compare it to Quentin Tarantino, though. I think Tarantino is a lot more eccentric with his films. There's a lot more, you'd say, out there,
Yeah.
to the average person. But Nolan is more, kind of, I wouldn't say normalized, but like it's not, take Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That movie was so weird.
Yeah.
With what it says, but Nolan doesn't do like super weird stuff like that.
No,
but they're still very similar in their ways of filmmaking.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, even more so than Christopher Nolan, you're either gonna love or hate his films, and I did not enjoy Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just found it so confusing,
so boring,
Yeah, but again, like I've heard people that just absolutely love that film, and they'd give it a 10 out of 10 rating. But yeah, going back to Nolan, his films just have a unique premise, and I think that's either going to establish whether you love or hate the film, because some people just want to watch a film and just kind of just sit there and like take it all in, and like you said, Sam, they just want to sit in the seat and kind of just blob out and just kind of watch the film, not kind of think about the film.
Yeah, and we saw this with Tenet. The reviews for that, so like 50-50 split. There was like probably like half of the critics saying this is a bad movie because I couldn't understand it. It's so complicated because it's bad, and I should be able to understand it, and because I don't, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
And then there was like the other half who was saying this is such a complex and interesting concept, and maybe you don't fully understand it on the first time, but that's the beauty of it. And there's like so many people who just feel like they deserve to know what's going on in a film, and they don't. They feel like when a director asks them to use their brain,
Yeah.
that's not their job. Their job's to just sit there and have a narrative, a very simple narrative, just like baby fed to you.
And that's the job a lot of different directors have to undergo, is do they want their films to be spoon feeding the audience, which is something that like MCU movies would do. Like if you watch Captain America Winter Soldier, you wouldn't say, well, that's a really complex and interesting movie. Like, no, it's just a guy with a shield beating up a guy with a metal arm.
Yeah.
But yeah, movies like Inception, Christopher Nolan really wants the audience to think about and think through what's happening in the movie. So it's definitely something that directors have to toss up when they do make movies, is what audience do they want to be making it for? And some critics don't know that, and they just think that all movies are for all people, and that's how they review it.
Yeah.
Which is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Also, to add to the MCU argument there, most MCU movies, well, in fact, every single MCU movie has what like film, I guess film scholars or whatever call a 3-act structure. So like you have the first, second, and third act of a film versus beginning, middle, and end, right?
Yeah.
So, and in this film, we sort of have like the start is, the mission going wrong and, establishing Cobb's character and such. And then the second is sort of, preparing for the dream heist. And then the third is the actual dream heist.
Yeah.
Whereas that dream heist actually starts at about like halfway through the film, maybe even like further, like maybe even earlier on.
Yeah.
Which I think is just, it just shows that Nolan he wasn't messing around with this. He knew that he needed a lot of time to really, direct this insane heist, that they couldn't save it to like the last half an hour of the film.
Yeah.
Which just shows that, he's thinking differently. But did you guys feel like that third, that final heist went on maybe too long, or did you get like bored at any stage?
And I do think that's one of the major drawbacks. Well, not major, but one of the things I don't enjoy about the film is the pacing. Like it's the same thing with Tenet as well. Everything is, you get one scene, nothing else happens from that, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And that happens constantly over and over and over. And yeah, the main heist was really cool. It was such an epic sequence. But yeah, it was a bit long. It was, as you said, over half the film.
Yeah.
Like they could have done more building other things, but I still enjoy it very much.
For sure. I get a bit bored when the snow part comes on, like the
mountain
that's in the
mountain
snow.
range.
Yeah, and I mean it's an awesome scene, and obviously the avalanche that comes down is awesome and everything like that. But I don't know, I just always get like, I remember watching the first time, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a bit bored here, like. So maybe that is a bit of a pacing issue, I imagine. But what are your thoughts, Jaden? Because obviously you watched this the first time. So did you feel like at any stage in the film you were like getting a bit bored, and like what sort of stages were that?
Again, I do think that the whole mountain range scene where they're in the snowy area, it was kind of a bit drawn out. And I actually saw this comment somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on YouTube. But in the film, in film time, not in how long the film is actually going to run for, but in the Inception time, when the van actually falls off the bridge, do you guys know how long it took for the van to hit the bridge, to hit the water in the furthermost dream stage, which would be
one stage before limbo?
Yeah.
I think it's like an hour of the movie time or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like when I heard that comment, I was just like, really? And it kind of just blew my mind in a way.
Mm.
I was like, oh my god, that's really how long it took. I just couldn't believe that. That kind of shocked me.
Yeah, no, it did shock me too, to be honest, because I saw that. I don't know where I saw that, but I saw that comment as well, and I was like, really? Like, because when something like that happens and we get sort of like a slow-mo shot, like we expect the shot to be over in the next like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But like it really just creates tension the entire film.
Yeah.
And then we see like at the end the truck falls into the water, and then we don't actually see whether Leonardo DiCaprio's character actually gets out of the truck or not. We just see, a couple scenes later on, which is interesting. Maybe we touch on that with your theory towards the end, Alex. But I want to ask you guys, when that dream heist does start, one of the characters needs to pee, and so he goes and pees. And I was wondering what you guys think actually happens in that scene. Like, if you pee in a dream, do you pee in real life? Like, what's the go there? Like, this guy has entered the dream state, realized he needs to go and pee.
Who are we talking
And
about?
so
This
it's
is
like
the alchemist guy.
chemist. Yeah.
The alchemist guy.
The one that, you don't remember the scene where the old guys are sleeping and the guy's like,
Oh,
this is their
yeah.
reality now? That
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Because they're the dream, he's the dreamer that they go into, and he needs to pee in real life. That's why it starts raining.
Oh.
But I think it's just like, as things, as you're younger, you see a toilet in a dream, you go start peeing, you're pissing in your real bed.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you start peeing, and then you wake up before you actually go.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's him actually just pissing himself.
That's funny.
Probably. Yeah. No, I just remember being like, oh, what happens there? Interesting. And I will say, Tom Hardy is just absolutely hilarious in this movie. He's obviously he is British, but he's obviously upping the ante on his Britishness. And he says when he gets into the cab and with Cillian Murphy's character, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was free," and then Cillian Murphy's character is like, "Excuse me, no, please get out." And he's like, "Oh, maybe we can share." And it's just like how he delivers that line, and it's just really funny. And I think Tom Hardy's character is really amusing the whole way through.
Yeah.
It is one of the comedic reliefs in there,
Yeah, for sure. And you really need that because it's a very serious movie, like all Christopher Nolan movies. And if this was a Star Wars movie, Tom Hardy would be like a sarcastic droid, and it wouldn't work. Whereas here, there's a bit of, there's more complexity to his humor and his personality.
Yeah. And
so that was really cool.
I just wanted to point out, I think there was one point in the movie where the guy who's actually driving the van, I can't remember his name, but when he like falls off the bridge, the first bridge, not the bridge where it goes into the water, and he like lands perfectly, and then he turns around and he's like, "Did you guys see that?" And then like everyone's asleep. I kind of thought to myself, I was like, damn, Nolan's putting jokes in his films now. That's an improvement for the guy. You don't see that a lot of the time in Nolan's films because he's so serious with what he does. I mean, he likes to just stick to the cutthroat storyline. But no, I do think that chucking in these comedic relief was quite a good way to go, and that in no way kind of detracts from the actors' performances, because I do think in a way that Tom Hardy's performance in this was probably one of the best performances in the film. And you can hate on me all you want there if he's just comedic relief, but Tom Hardy is just so versatile as an actor, and we've seen him in The Dark Knight when he plays Bane. Just looking at the change, he's so different in the two films. Like, you wouldn't even think it's the same guy. And then also,
Bane is Tom Hardy?
Yeah, see, you didn't know that. Yeah. It's kind of mind-blowing in a way. And he also played Venom. So all of his roles are just so different. And it looks like the same guy. Obviously, Bane doesn't look like the same guy. But, Venom and Inception look like the same actor. But they're like two completely different personalities. And Tom Hardy's just such an amazing actor. And I do think that, him pulling off this sort of cocky English funny dude, he just portrayed it so well in this film.
I will hate on you for saying that's one of the best performances, but
okay,
it is a good performance nonetheless.
I do
But
think all of the
Well,
performances in this film were just amazing.
yeah,
Just kind of stood out to me. Yeah.
well, on that, I'll push back and I say Marion Cotillard, so Mal or Maul, whatever you want to call her, Darth Marion Cotillard. Her her performance in this film, I really don't like, and I really don't think I like her as an actor at all because I don't like her in The Dark Knight Rises either.
Okay.
I can agree with
I
you
think
there. I don't like her in
I
Dark Knight
think
Rises either.
Yeah, I think she's the worst performance in The Dark Knight Rises, and I think she's the worst performance in this as well.
Mhm.
And I did some thinking about this because I thought, maybe you guys would, push back on this or anything. But I think her as an actor or an actress, she's got this very sort of like almost like psychotic look about like she's just like born to play a character that's a bit left of center, like it just a bit weird and a bit like not really like relatable in a sense. Like, do you guys feel that at all? Like, do
I
you think
do
that?
especially when she's staring at another character, her
Yeah,
facial expressions are just like, I don't know. I can see where you come from. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and it's not like a personal dig at her because obviously like this is the roles that she's doing, but she has like a very menacing look about her,
Yeah,
and for me, her performance throughout the entire film, she's never at one stage very compassionate and normal. So I feel like I found it really hard to like relate to her and like really feel for her and want her to realize that she's not in reality and she needs, or maybe, want her to realize that she is in reality and accept the fact that she's not dreaming anymore.
Mhm.
yeah.
But she always just like throughout the entire film is just like a really psychotic and insane individual.
Mhm.
And she just like, so that just doesn't work for me. And I was thinking, who else could play her? And I was thinking maybe someone like Amy Adams. So, Lois
Yeah.
Lane. I feel like just someone with a bit more of a nice face. I mean, it's not to be mean to the current actress
Nice
because,
face.
and I don't know if you guys know of the actor who plays Coco in Blade Runner. If you guys like, just quickly look that up now, you'll know who I'm
Honesty.
talking about.
Wait, what's her name?
Um,
It's
um, Coco in Blade Runner is played. Just look that up. It's played by David. Oh God, Millsy, you're gonna butcher me on this. Dust Malchian or something like that.
I wouldn't know how to.
So
I wouldn't know how to pronounce that one.
yeah, but if you guys look that up, you'll see who I'm talking about. He is very similar in the sense that he's always playing like a really psychotic character and
Yeah,
like very like weird and just uncomfortable character. And I feel like as this as Maul or Mal as a character, you want to sympathize with her because she's the heart of the story in a way. And I feel like you just need a nicer, I don't know, a nicer
you
face
said
on
you
her.
didn't want to take a personal dig at her, but this whole rant was
is the
about 3
personally.
minutes long, digging at her. So
I just wanted to point up on it because I do think that sometimes people get a bit confused when it comes to whether it was bad acting or whether the acting was so good that it made you hate the character. And obviously, the wife, Mel or Mole or whatever her name is, she is a psychotic character in this film, and
yeah,
frame she did frame Cobb. So I do think in a way that her character was meant to be this sort of psychotic, grungy person that no one likes.
and that's what I
Um,
was gonna say as well.
and
Yeah,
and that in a way made me like the character. It kind of added towards the performance. Um, and and I do think, Sam, I'm going to hate on you here, man. I do think that hating an actor based on their facial expressions is a bit biased, because obviously they can't change that. But I think she pulled off her performance spectacularly, and
yeah,
she wasn't one of my favorites in the film, but I think that also added to the fact that she had less screen time than the other actors, but she still did an amazing job.
yeah.
You see, for me, this sort of character, I feel like you need to be invested in her as a loving mother first. I feel like we start her story, um, and she's always just like this out of touch. And look, I think her performance, like the actress's performance in the film, is probably exactly what she was meant to do.
Yeah,
So it's not her fault, and
Mm.
obviously, like her demeanor, she plays a very similar role in The Dark Knight Rises. So obviously this demeanor that she can bring is obviously she's an extremely talented actor, and that's what she's good at, So not necessarily like something that's wrong with her, but I think it's wrong with the casting of that character. I feel like that character should have been cast in with a bit more emotional depth and sort of like a transition of emotions. Like show us a scene where the character is a loving mother and everything's okay and she's got her grip on reality.
Yeah, but
and then we can sort of like
see there again, that's not her acting, that's the writing. She wasn't
exactly.
given
So
that.
I'm talking about the casting. So the casting and the writing, sure. So it's not necessarily the actors or the actress's fault. But as like a viewer, the thing that I see wrong with the movie is the actress.
Okay.
Do you feel me? Like,
yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I've got to say that is what a character is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a detached person from reality. Like she's not supposed to be loving and caring. She's supposed to be wanting to get back to her own reality, and that's why she doesn't even care about her kids. She just wants to go back to the kids she's made up in her head. And that's why, she's always kind of unhinged in all the scenes because she's lost her grip, her sanity on reality. And I think that's exactly what the character was supposed to be going for. So yeah, I'll have to completely disagree with you.
I'm kind of standing with Millsy here. And again, like I understand what you mean, Sam, when you say that it would have been good to get a scene where she is portrayed as, this loving mother. But that comes down to the writing. That's not particularly the actor's fault because she can't just manifest the scene out of nowhere. She can make her performance as good as the writing allows her to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with your points there, boys. But yeah, I'll have to stay in my lane. But I think obviously we don't have to agree with everything all the time. But I think for me, Cobb's backstory is a highlight of the film for me, and I think it's bloody fantastic, like how his character is written with respect to his wife. And I feel like the only drawback, sort of like in the entire film for me, is the wife, because I just feel so disconnected to her, and I feel like when she does kill herself, I feel like that could have been so like. I feel like in that scene when watching that, I don't feel anything for that character herself. I only feel for Cobb because I'm like, there's something wrong with this woman. And obviously, I feel like, this is tragic. She's not there. But the fact that I've never seen her actually there, like present. I feel like, for me at least, takes away a bit from what I feel for her, because she's like the villain of this story, in my opinion. Like she comes up to wreck things, and she's psychotic and insane. So I would have liked a bit more backstory. Yeah, and so I think that is probably a problem with the writing. Yes, and I feel like this actress did exactly what she was told to do, and it was it's like saying it's like blaming Adam Best for Jar Jar Binks. It's like it's not the actor's fault; it's the writing. So I agree with you guys. I feel like my real problem there is the writing. But if I could do anything, I'd switch the actress. If I could keep everything the same and just quickly switch the actress without any harm done to the rest of the film, I would switch the actress.
But yeah, I was going to say, I think it's interesting that you bring up that you didn't feel anything for Mel in that moment with the two buildings, them across from each other, because this is a good time to get into it. But you find out later in the film that Cobb incepted the thought of she's not in her own reality into Mal. Like before that point, she was obviously content with staying in limbo, but the thought of wanting to get back to reality stuck in her mind forever, and that's why she wanted to go to convince Cobb to leave. And I feel like that's why her story is so tragic, is because she was manipulated into believing that she's always dreaming by Cobb.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the one thing that is like in terms of her character in that scene. It is tragic once you realize that Cobb's like interfered with her mind. He's manipulated her. But for me, I feel like a different actress might have done a better job. But that's what I'll say. And obviously, I'm happy to disagree. But we don't have to agree on everything all the time. But But that for me is the one drawback of the entire film, because otherwise I think, I was really grasping with what am I going to rate? Am I going to give this film the best rating? So yeah, but shall we move on then? Bit of a touchy subject, obviously.
Yeah.
So let's go towards the end. Obviously, we have the hallway fight scene. Obviously, the music is sensational. And I will say, again, some people say that it's hard to hear the dialogue in this film.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about that?
I
You reaching for subtitles at all?
so I watched this film on YouTube, and within the first 5 minutes I had it on full volume because I couldn't hear it. And I was also reaching for the subtitles, and in particular that film didn't have subtitles, so I had to watch the whole film through on the highest possible audio that I could. And then at scenes, where there's massive explosions, I had to turn it down. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of the drawbacks from this film. And Christopher Nolan does it time and time again. I also saw it in Tenet, where his sound mixing is just a bit off. And I've seen reviews of this film that just say the sound mixing is just incredible, but I got to disagree with that, because at times, I couldn't hear the dialogue, and the audio was so loud, and you shouldn't have to watch a film like that on, full volume.
Yeah. I think I'm a bit biased on that subject because I do like watching things with subtitles anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a just Inception problem. That's, as you said, Jaden,
It's
a whole Nolan thing.
Nolan likes to do it for some reason, and I don't understand why when people say that the sound mixing is just incredible, because in reality it's not. And I don't even see how you could argue with that, because if you have to watch a film on full volume and you still can't hear it, then something is definitely wrong there.
It's really interesting that you bring that up, Jaden, because guess 2 of the Oscars that this film won.
Sound production and sound mixing, probably.
Best achievement in sound mixing and best achievement in sound editing. And so, take that for what you will about the integrity of the Academy Awards. But I think I watched this film, and I always sort of like to watch films with the headphones on. And when I think when you wear headphones, you can hear everything.
I had my headphones
dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Well, because I personally didn't have trouble at all hearing the dialogue, but maybe that's because it's the second time I've watched the film.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not hearing certain things, but I know it anyway. So yeah, I definitely agree with you guys when saying that Nolan has always had a bit of a problem with his sound mixing, but the Academy Awards don't.
That's one thing I'll never understand, is why people give Academy Awards for that. Like, it's clear that the sound mixing just isn't the best. Like, The Hangover has better sound mixing than this film, and that's a terrible film. Like, I just don't understand why they would give an award for that when it's clearly the opposite. Like, you can't even argue like a biased point of view on that. It's just clear that the sound mixing is bad.
See, a bunch of Oscar people would disagree with you there.
Yeah, that I don't understand. Like, that's blowing my mind more than Inception blew my mind. Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah, no, they definitely, hit or miss sometimes. But I think the Oscars work is it's like a combination of like a ton of different critics. So it's crazy. I mean, maybe the music has something to do with that. I don't think it actually won the Oscar for best original score.
God,
but maybe they were sort of
that's a
maybe
sin,
they were
bro.
making but maybe they were sort of making up for it with the sound mixing and sound editing.
Yeah.
Because the Academy Awards work like that. We see sympathy Oscars and everything like that. For Leonardo DiCaprio, for example. We've already touched on that. So so let's move sort of towards the end again. Maybe Millsy, you want to chime in with a bit more of the theory that you refrained from talking about in the earlier part of the episode.
With the ending of the movie.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add before we sort of delve into all of the theories that come from the very end of this film.
I'll jump in and add something real quick. Just a few things. I'm just gonna fire them at you.
Just go for
it. So I think at one point we had a dream inside a dream inside a dream. And I think that's the furthest that we got in terms of dreams, which obviously enters the limbo state. And at times it felt like I was trying to figure out where I was, like what dream am I in? Like at no point did that like detract from my overall review of the film, because Christopher Nolan films are meant to be confusing. So I enjoyed it. Like I was trying to figure it out. I just thought that was kind of funny how we have a dream inside a dream inside a dream. I also wanted to touch on the van falling scene when it was falling off the bridge. I think that was just constructed brilliantly when they were all kind of brought back to reality, when they like were flying through the different stages of the dream.
Yeah.
I think that was done quite well.
I'll just touch on that one real quick. I do like how. So you notice you touched on the hallway scene before, how the guy was in zero gravity, but that was because the van was falling through the air.
Yeah.
Like I love how Nolan interwove the different, dream states.
Yeah.
And you realize, why they're in not why, but like how they're in a dream and everything, and why they're spinning around a hallway, because this van is spinning and falling.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I like about Christopher Nolan is that I can't really pick up any plot holes in his films from memory. Like, it's like he's just covered every single ground and thought of every single thing, because he's been making these films for over 10 years. Like one film in over 10 years, he makes the idea of the film, and then he writes it, and then he puts the film together. And I think some of his films, like he said in interviews, he makes one film in the span of 10 years, which you don't see that. Films typically get made in a 2-year timeline.
Yeah.
But no, it's kind of like his films are his baby, and he just kind of thinks of every possible error and then just flushes them all out. Like all the plot holes, I couldn't even find one in this film, even though it's so confusing. Like you think you would find one, but you don't. You just don't find the plot holes.
Yeah.
He definitely covers all bases, that's for sure. So anything else that you want to add, Jaden, about those final moments?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out a question here. So typically, Christopher Nolan has a villain in his films, right?
Right.
We see the Joker in The Dark Knight, and we see Saito in Tenet. And in this film, the whole span of the film, I was just trying to figure out who the actual villain was. And, people would say that it is his wife is the villain. But in conjunction with Alex's theory,
I think it's Cobb.
It kind of made me question whether Cobb was the villain. And that's a really interesting point to touch on, because, Cobb from the start of the film is kind of viewed as the protagonist. And then towards the end, I was like, hold up. Cobb's actually kind of the antagonist in this film, because he made his wife believe all this crazy stuff. And I hadn't really thought of that until the end, when I go back and think about the film overall, because that's what Christopher Nolan does. And that kind of just blew my mind in a way, because you don't see that in film, where the good guy is the bad guy, right? You don't see that.
Yeah. Well, that's funny that you say that. Oh, sorry, Sam, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Cobb's both the protagonist and the antagonist. I think he's the good guy and the bad guy. Like, obviously, the entire story is trying to get him back to his kids, which we want him to do, obviously.
Yeah.
And so we want him to get to that stage. But the only thing blocking him in that stage is, I would say, his wife. But then his wife is a projection of him.
Yeah.
So, really interesting. But what were you going to say, Alex?
We do get kind of subtle hints that he really doesn't care about anyone but himself throughout the film. Like, I don't know if you'll remember, but Saito gets shot by Mal in one of the dream layers. Can't remember which one. But then Tom Hardy's character says, "Okay, we're done. This is getting too serious. Like, if we die here, we're going to be in limbo forever." And Cobb just says, "Screw it. Let's keep going. He'll be down there for a good 50 years in his mind, but we'll rescue him." Like, he doesn't even care that someone's mind will age.
Yeah.
In their world. He just says, mission's still there, we can bring him out.
And I think one of the other things was the fact that he never told anyone about I can't remember what it was in particular, but everyone got angry at him that he hadn't revealed the full plan of the dream heist in a way, and the consequences that it would have, where they would all be in a state of limbo. He never told anyone. He kind of was just looking at it from it only affecting himself, not anyone
Yeah.
else. So yeah, in a way, I do think that strictly Cobb is the only antagonist in this film, but I think he kind of has a shift from the start to the finish, where he starts as a protagonist, and then at the end you realize that he really is the antagonist.
It's funny that I came onto this podcast from Revenge of the Sith and this movie, because it's funny you say that, because Anakin Skywalker starts as the protagonist,
Yeah,
but then we learn he's the antagonist. But throughout the films, you realize he is a bit unhinged himself.
yeah.
It's a weird
It's quite
similarity,
similar,
but
isn't it?
yeah.
I do think that Inception has more so hidden the fact that he's the antagonist.
Yeah.
Anakin, it's quite obvious that he is the bad guy, or more so a good guy that had a tough upbringing and become the bad guy. But
Yeah.
I do think that Cobb, throughout the extent of the film, was secretly the bad guy.
And I really see that Cobb's the antagonist when Maul does appear in the snow area, and she shoots who does she shoot? Is it Saito
Fischer.
or
Yeah, she
Fischer?
shoots
Yeah,
Fischer.
yeah, she shoots Fischer. Yeah, you're right. And Cobb has got his scope on her, and he can prevent this from happening if he just shoots the projection. But he says, "Oh, but she might be real." And I just remember thinking, "Well, how is she real? You know, she's not real." So
he's constantly fighting with himself.
Yeah. So he's constantly "Oh, maybe this is reality." It's crazy. But yeah, no, it's awesome to touch on that again, because I just remember thinking in the film, I was so frustrated. I was like, well, you're in a dream, so she's not real. It's she didn't come into the dream with you. But then his whole dilemma is that he thinks that where he is might actually be reality, because he's lost grip on reality. It's the whole theme of the movie, I think. But yeah, so without further ado, shall we touch on the final parts of the heist, and then the ending of this film, because the ending of this film is brilliant. It's just marvelous. So what are our thoughts, guys, on sort of the final part of the heist? So the truck falls into the water. We see quite a few people get out, but the people who don't are Cobb and Saito, and then the next scene is them waking up in the plane. So thoughts, guys. What do we think happened there? And towards the end of the film, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So like I said, I do think that the scene where they all come back into this one conjoined reality, the reality that we are all in, when they come back to that one, I do think that was performed quite well, and how it was all in sync, and then they went through the different dream stages. But one thing that I did pick up on was when they came back to the plane scene. It had been so long since we'd seen them go into the dream state in that scene, and then I kind of forgot about it. And when I saw it again, I was like, "Hold up, did we go back in time? What happened here?" And then I realized, oh my god, we were in another dream state.
And exactly, again, how ironic is that?
Yeah, right.
That you're in the dream for so long,
you
don't know what's reality anymore.
And I do think that Christopher Nolan did that on purpose. And if so, that is just spectacular, that he makes you forget that you're in a dream state. But he's just kind of blurred the line so much that you forget. And that's essentially the whole premise of the film, is that these characters are in a dream state, and then his wife is kind of fighting with the fact that she can't accept coming back to reality. She wants to stay in this kind of a limbo world that she's all made up, or Cobb's made up in a way. But yeah, Christopher Nolan, man, he's just such a genius with his work, and he definitely did it on purpose. And he confused me so much that it's kind of added to the film. It's confusing, but I like what he does. Yeah.
What did you? I noticed when Saito did wake up on the plane, you get like a brief shot of him before he wakes up, and he looks like he's lost his brain, which is obviously what happens because he was in limbo. And I don't know, maybe, I don't think he's sleeping with his eyes open, but he's like resting his head, and like all of his body's limped, and he's got like his like mouth open, and he's just like staring into nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh geez, he doesn't look good. But then he wakes up. So do you guys think that final bit when we see Cobb wake up and we see everybody else wake up, do you think that's actually reality, or do you think that's actually that Cobb's still dreaming? Or
Well,
maybe
that comes into the final, spinning top.
Yeah, go on your theory there, Millsy, because I want to hear your take on that.
Okay, so obviously I think it's still a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's a big but. Cobb does not care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie, he is trying so hard to get back to his own reality, to get back to his children, which is his reality, which is what his wife wanted to be. He's always spinning the top, ready with the gun in his hand, about to shoot himself if the top keeps spinning forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's finally let go of Mal at the end. He's finally gotten over that guilt of himself, of what he did. That he just doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care if he's still in a dream. When he sees, and you also see throughout the whole movie, every time the flashback to the kids, you never see their faces. You only see the back of their heads. But then finally, when he returns home, the kids turn around and he can see their faces again. And that's why he spins the top, but he's like, I don't care. I'm with my kids. This is my reality now.
Yeah, I think the point of, not showing us whether that totem was wobbling or not, or whether it was going to fall or not, was to say that it doesn't matter whether it's reality, or because Cobb's like accepted where he is.
You make your own reality, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was the sort of the point. But then I can also see like Christopher Nolan like with the camera like evilly laughing and being like, and cut now, and he's like, they'll never know. Yeah. But I think it's interesting. Obviously, this sparked an entire sort of
decades
debate.
Worth of argument.
Yeah. So Jaden, it seems like Alex has sort of got his theory. Jaden, what are your thoughts like hearing that and then watching the movie for the first time yourself?
Obviously I didn't have too much time, or not as much time as you guys, to generate a theory on the ending of this film. But no, I quite like Millsy's theory, or Alex's theory, where he's still in this dream state and he's created his own reality, in quotation marks, with his kids. He's kind of sick of jumping around all the place and trying to figure all this out. And now that he's with his kids, he's seen their faces and he can hold them. He just wants to stay there. He can't really be bothered, trying to figure out a better way anymore. He wants to stay in this state now. But yeah, like I said, I didn't have as much time to think about this, but I do quite like your theory, and I am kind of coming along with it now, and I understand what you have kind of sparked here. And I just had a question. Did you generate this, or did you see something else, or is this like your...
Well, this is kind of a thing I had in my mind. That I was thinking about this, and a lot of different sources kind of made me formulate.
Okay.
But then there was this one thing I read, and it was like, this is one of the biggest, I wouldn't say plot holes, but like something that adds to the thing that it's a dream, is a murder charge that Cobb had against his kids, against his wife, does not go away with one phone call that lasts 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, how can Saito, an energy company CEO, call someone and then a whole murder charge goes away, and Cobb can use his real name at any airport, anywhere across the world? It's like, really? Like, you believe that that's something in reality?
In a way, it's kind of like Cobb is manifesting the fact that he is innocent, or he just wants to clear his name. And in reality, with the US court system, that's not how it works.
Exactly.
You would have to go through they would have to investigate it, and they would have to find out all of the people involved in the murder. yeah, like you said, it's not as easy as just making one phone call and then your name's clear. But I do think, again, that comes back to the fact that Cobb wants everything to just blow over easy and just forget about it. And now that he's with his kids, he's living the life that he wants.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Sam.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting that Jaden brings up the fact that, Cobb's trying to, decide himself, or like, accept the fact that he's not guilty. But when you think about it, he actually is, considering, but for the fact that Cobb interfered with his wife's mind, she might have stayed in limbo forever, but eventually you wake up from limbo, right? So, if you think like, but for the fact that Cobb interfered with his wife's mind, she wouldn't have killed herself in reality. But for me, when I first watched this film, I was like, oh my gosh, I need answers.
Mhm.
So, of course, I went to the internet, and Christopher Nolan and, all the people involved, with writing the film, etc. Like they refuse to give an answer, because it's the the premise of the film is, is it or not, it doesn't matter, so. But however, Michael Caine is the key, at least from my perspective anyway. He was told, Michael Caine's character, that he was in every single scene that he was in was reality. So if
Yeah.
Michael Caine's was in every single scene that was reality, then he's in the final scene. Therefore, the final scene is reality.
Right.
So, but I almost, with things like this and ambiguous endings and such, I really almost don't like to think, okay, this is how it is. I just
Yeah.
like the ambiguity of it. Like, I just like to think of, it could go either way, and I'm happy with that. Like, I don't really want an answer. Like, I don't want Christopher Nolan to come out and say
This or that.
it's a
Yeah.
dream, or and it's the same thing with the original Blade Runner. One of the main characters, there's this whole theory as to whether the main character is a replicant. Well, so is he a robot or is he a human? And Ridley Scott, so the creator, says that he is a replicant, and then Harrison Ford, who actually plays the character, says he's not, and everybody's saying different things, and I'm just happy that there's no consensus. It's
Yeah.
just ambiguous. So I enjoy that with the film. But as to whether I think it's reality, I think it works better in the film if it is reality. But then I also love your theory, Alex. So
Yeah. And I did have an earlier theory when I first watched the movie, and I watched this on some YouTube video. But anytime Cobb's in the real world, he doesn't have a ring, a
yes,
wedding
his
ring
wedding
on.
ring.
But
Yes,
every time he's in a dream, he does, because he wants to be with his wife.
Oh,
yeah.
But then at the end, you don't see him with a wedding ring. So it's kind of like, there's all these different little evidence that point this way, and then there's other things that point that way. It's very well done.
I
agree.
I just wanted to throw in something here. How long is the limbo state again? Like, how?
That can go on for infinite time.
So, if, like, I don't want him to make a sequel to this film, right? I think kind of the beauty of his films is that they are left up to interpretation. But at the same time, I wouldn't put it past Nolan making another film in 50 years called Limbo or something, where he explains what happened in this film, and then he makes the time weighted between the two films. So if he was to release the film in 2060 and then make a sequel to this film, I think that would just generate so much hype over the film. And if he was to do something like that, I honestly wouldn't put it past him explaining.
That'd be so much dedication.
That would be so much dedication. And if he has already thought of doing that, he's already probably thought of doing that. He's made that decision already. I already know he's made that decision to make that film. He probably made that decision when he was making this film, Inception. But yeah, like we said, I think kind of the beauty of his films is that it is like a standoff film, and he doesn't want to explain it, but yeah, at the same time, he also makes trilogies like The Dark Knight. So you never know.
But if you think of The Dark Knight, he made The Dark Knight with the attitude that every film could be the last.
Yeah.
That's why you have such a good ending at The Dark
Yeah.
Knight. Like you could have left The Dark Knight and just not gone back to it because it's a good ending. Like for the two films. So yeah, I think there's calls for a sequel to Tenet as well because obviously at the end of that film there's still so much for the protagonist to do. Like he has to set up the entire organization. And, there's obviously more action to come there. And, I was thinking while I was watching this, there is, some untold stories here. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Alex? Do you want a sequel to this?
No, I don't. I like it. It's exactly where it is.
Yeah, I don't want one either, to be honest. But I wouldn't put it past Nolan creating one just to explain what has happened in the next 50 years. I could see him doing it, but I don't want him to do it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think with films that I love, I'm like, I love this film. Don't stuff it up.
Yeah.
I just want this film. That's it.
Yeah.
No, don't give me another one. Don't give me a Joker 2.
I knew you were going to say that.
A Joker 3. It's because of Disney Star Wars. That's what it did. That's what it was. But regardless, I want to pose this question to you guys. I know you haven't seen all of Nolan's films, but out of the ones you have seen, do you think this is the best?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be a bit biased here.
Yeah, with The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight's my favorite film, so I'm going to say no. But this film is incredibly good, and I'm not going to spoil anything until we give our final review here. But it's things like the sound mixing that do decrease my rating of this film. But yeah, it's still an amazing film in terms of trying to figure out what happened in it and the theories that surround it, and the overall acting by the cast. I mean, that was great as well, and the action and all of the new film techniques that he's found in this film and that he's pioneered, like you said, Sam, for future films to endeavor in. But yeah, I'm gonna say no, only because The Dark Knight is like my favorite film, and that's kind of biased in a way, but yeah.
Would you say that it's his best like standalone film? Like obviously The Dark Knight has a film coming before it and after it. So would you say, I think you've only seen this and Tenet, right?
Yeah, this is better than Tenet, I'll say that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I actually enjoy the premise of Tenet more, but I think this is the better film.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So music segment. So the song going in the Rewatch playlist this week is no surprise, is Time by Hans Zimmer. And I might add another one in, perhaps the song that plays during the dream sequence of when they're in the cafe. Or maybe perhaps the song that plays during the avalanche, the snow mission.
Oh, is that
there.
the one with excuse the singing here, but it's like no.
Oh no! That's like the song that they played on the headphones, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't think that one's in the official. I mean, I can add one that way.
That's a really old song.
But you know what's funny? That song the length of it is 2 minutes 28 seconds, and the length of the movie is 2 hours 28 minutes.
Is it actually?
Yeah, you can look it up.
Oh my god, if that's the case, then that's kind of mind-blowing.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past Nolan, to be honest. But all right then. So I think we've sort of touched on as much as we can within the certain time limit. I feel like we could talk about this for hours and hours, just because of the theories that arise because of it and the ambiguities there. But do you want to transition to some final thoughts? Maybe Alex, do you want to go first? Sort of say why you like the movie and give it a tier ranking, or
Yeah. Okay.
and we've improved the tiers, so you can give it like an A+, A-, or B+, B-.
Right.
Well, we know it's in the A range, so it's going to be A-, A, or A+.
Bold of you to assume. No, just kidding.
Well, I'll just start off. Obviously, this is an A+ for me.
Okay. Yep.
The music, brilliant. The action sequences, brilliant. The humor, top tier. Not the best I've seen, but top tier. The emotional connection of the movie is top tier. It all works for me. Obviously I've seen this movie over 5 times, and I'll continue to watch it throughout time. It's just one of my favorites ever.
Yeah. No, that's a fair argument. That's actually a fair argument, in terms of like objective viewer as well. I
Yeah.
think a lot of your points there are like objectively correct. But Jaden, what are your thoughts?
Usually I write down like a paragraph explaining my rating, but I'm just gonna go off the top of my head here because I think it's more fitting. Um, I do think that me coming from a perspective where I've watched this film once is going to overall impact my rating on it. And if I was to watch it 5 times like Millsy, I'd probably rate it else what. Um, but I want to give this film an A, and I'm just going to justify it now. Like I said before, I do think that the sound mixing kind of detracted from my overall rating of this film.
Yeah.
And by no means is that like a huge negative drawback from this film. But I couldn't justify giving it an A plus over that because an A plus in my eyes is a perfect film.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think a lot of the things that Nolan did in this film were different. They were unique, and they have in a way changed the course of the film industry. And all of the performances, like I said before in this film, I just loved. I think they were all great. Um, even something like Yusuf, who drives the van, I think he did a great performance, even though he had like little screen time. Um, but yeah, me watching the film one time, I think it will impact my rating. And like I said, if I was to watch it 5 times, I probably would give it an A plus. But I can't justify giving it an A plus when I've watched it, one time. I think it's just uh, a bit biased on my end.
Yeah.
But yeah, the music, which I also look at when I determine my ranking, I think this music was just magnificent. Hans Zimmer is just a genius, like a wizard. Like I said before, you're a wizard, Hans. I do think that this is probably one of his best scores overall. Um, like I said, it gave me goosebumps at the end. And another thing that I like about Nolan's films is that a lot of them end on a like a cliffhanger. And I do think I said on my review on Letterboxd that this is one of the film industry's best cliffhangers, and I'm going to stand by that. Look, people are still thinking about this film 10 years later. What does that say?
Yeah.
I do think Christopher Nolan. This is probably one of his masterpieces, and I do think that it deserves all of the great reviews and critiques
Praise.
that it's had. Yeah, the craze. Yeah.
For sure.
What about you,
It's
Sam?
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that this film came out in 2010. It's been out for 10 years, but if this film came out yesterday, it would have been like there's nothing you can do to improve like the the effects of this film.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just flawless. But yeah, so yeah, I'm in a tough position, you see, because Jaden said I'm going to give it an A. I've watched it once. Maybe I'll give it an A plus if I watched it twice. And Alex has said I've watched it 5 times. I'm going to give it an A plus. So I'm in the middle, right? Of do I go for an A or do I go for an A
Well,
plus?
don't look at it from our standpoint.
Yeah, no, I know. I wouldn't I'm not. I wouldn't change my review to fit your reviews, guys. But it's just funny that I do think Nolan films are designed to be watched twice, and here watching it twice, this is a bloody fantastic film. I will say that. But unfortunately, I'm not going to. It's not perfect for me, and I think you guys already know why that is. And so I'm going to give it an A. And I think, but I want to stress this. Okay. I've never been this close to giving an A plus to any film prior to this on the podcast. So we've done Into the Spider-Verse, we've done Joker, we've done quite a few other films where we've given A's. And those times where I've given A's, I'm like, yeah, it's an easy A. It's not an A plus because there are pretty bold things that are wrong with the film, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, the thing is so minor that I really, really struggled as to whether I was going to give it an A or an A plus. But I'm just going to stay safe. I'm going to give it an A. And I feel like, perhaps, if I watch this film more, I can get more accustomed to Mal as a character. Because, yeah, you guys know that was the thing for me that really, really stopped this film from being perfect, to be honest, because I don't think anything else is wrong with it. Like, I didn't have a problem with the sound mixing, and I didn't have a problem with literally anything else, or the fact that, you know, we were constantly getting exposition. Like, I know some people make fun of this film that it shouldn't be called Inception, it should be called Exposition, because there's just so much exposition coming at you. But for me, that's not a problem, and it's part of the beauty of the film. I love the ending. The music's fantastic. All of the things you guys have said are completely true. But I think personal preference for me is I would have liked, you know, a character of the wife that, you know, we get to really invest emotionally with, and we get to see her before she sort of turns into this like a manipulated person that we see in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, that's entirely personal preference. So, but I think Jaden's A rating is justified, and I think Alex's A+ is justified as well. So I'm going to give it an A, which gives us an average of like an A, but halfway in between an A+, which is exactly where I put the film.
An
to be
AT,
honest.
because half a plus is a T.
Oh yeah.
Not really.
Sure.
It's more like just a line, but yeah.
Yeah, true.
That would make it an A-. You see, that would make it an A-, but maybe like a vertical line.
Yeah.
Maybe a vertical line. Yes. So we'll leave it at that. But no, this has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed talking to you guys about it, and I enjoyed the fact that you guys actually pushed back on the fact that, you know, I had problems with Maul as a character, because I feel like if we can't have those sort of, you know, discussions, then what's the point of having more than one person on the podcast?
Exactly.
You see, so I actually really enjoyed that. So thanks for that, lads. And obviously, thank you to the lovely listeners for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the Rewatch Pod. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search the Rewatch on YouTube. Thanks to Alex for coming on again.
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. It was great to have you on. Fantastic movie that you brought with you this time. Certainly better than Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, so obviously I'd love to have you back on again, maybe for another Nolan film, perhaps. You know, a film that we can delve into the theories again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would be awesome. So I look forward to that. Jaden, do you got any thoughts on what we're doing next, mate?
Oh God, you threw me on.
We literally have no idea. That's the thing.
Yeah, we don't know.
We have not discussed this at all.
Just name one of the Shrek movies, and he'll be there.
Shrek 2, let's go.
Shrek 2. Oh, fantastic! I'm well down for that. That's a brilliant movie. Okay.
Oh, why don't you review one of the sequels for Star Wars? They're such good movies.
Yeah, maybe.
I particularly
tomorrow.
like that character. Like, I think her name is Ray. As Finn would put her.
So on that lovely note, thank you for listening. Bye for now.
See ya.
Bye.